Wang Yibo never planned for the moment that would define him. It didn't arrive the way people imagine breakthroughs usually do, not with fireworks, not with applause, not with a spotlight waiting on stage. His defining moment arrived quietly, like a small knock on a door he didn't know he had locked. At the time, he was only focused on showing up every day and doing the work in front of him. And yet, somehow, this ordinary moment would be the one that reshaped how people saw him, how producers saw him, and most importantly, how he saw himself. He had always been surrounded by noise. Industry noise, fan noise, expectations, pressure, comparisons, and the never-ending echo of what's next. But deep down, he had learned how to move through noise without letting it touch him. Most people thought his silence came from mystery or confidence. In reality, his silence came from survival. It was the only way he could protect the parts of himself he didn't want the world to touch. Even as his career grew, that part of him stayed locked away. Then came the moment everything shifted. It happened on a day that should have been unremarkable. He was preparing for a shoot, a scene that wasn't supposed to carry emotional weight, just a simple exchange between characters. He went in expecting a routine performance. But the director had a different idea that day. Right before filming, the director looked at him and said something that caught him completely off guard. Something small. Something simple. Something he wasn't expecting to hear. "I need you to stop performing. I want you to feel this for real." Wang Yibo had heard variations of this line before from acting coaches, from directors, from people who wanted more than he felt he could give. But this time, something about the tone, or maybe the timing, or maybe the unspoken meaning behind the director's eyes, reached him differently. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. He stood there for a moment, unsure of how to answer. The set, normally filled with motion, suddenly felt still. People around him waited, the cameras quietly pointing, the lights warming his skin. And for the first time in a very long time, he felt the weight of something he had been ignoring for years. The weight of being understood. The scene began. But instead of slipping into the version of his character he had practiced, something inside him cracked open. A memory surfaced. Unexpected, almost intrusive. A memory of the earlier days of his career when he wasn't sure if he belonged, when he didn't know if he was good enough, when every audition felt like a test he could fail at any moment. He remembered the frustration, the exhaustion, the loneliness. He remembered wanting to succeed so badly that he pushed every emotion aside just to keep going. And suddenly, in the middle of filming, the emotion he had held back for years found its way out. Not forced. Not acted. Real. People watching the monitor went still. The director didn't say a word. The crew didn't move. Everyone saw it happen. The shift, the transformation, the moment that wasn't written in the script. And when the scene ended, there was this quiet, stunned silence. A few seconds passed before the director finally spoke. "That," he said softly, "was the real you." Those words lingered with him long after he left the set. He returned home that night feeling heavier, yet lighter at the same time. He sat alone, replaying the moment in his mind, thinking about how easily he had buried feelings beneath discipline and hard work. He realized he had been so busy trying to be perfect, trying to meet expectations, trying to stay strong, that he had forgotten that the world didn't need a perfect version of him. The world needed a real one. Over the next few weeks, something changed in how he carried himself on set. People noticed it immediately. His performances deepened. His eyes said more with fewer lines. His expressions became fuller, more layered, more human. Instead of being flawless, he became alive. And audiences felt the difference. They didn't know the story behind the transformation, but they felt it. They sensed the shift. They could see that something inside him had opened. With every new project, his confidence grew. Not the loud kind of confidence that demands attention, but the quiet kind that fills a room without trying. And that quiet confidence made him magnetic. Directors began requesting him specifically. Scripts written for other actors were suddenly being rewritten for him. He was no longer just a rising star. He was becoming a reference point, a name people used to describe a certain kind of performance. But as he grew, so did the pressure. New labels followed him everywhere, Global star, multi-talent, top actor, top dancer, top performer, inspiration, icon. These titles were flattering, but they also came with expectations that felt heavier than before. People wanted him to maintain the same emotional depth, the same vulnerability, the same impact in every role. They wanted constant perfection from someone who had finally allowed himself not to be perfect. For a while, he struggled again. He felt the old habits trying to return, closing off, shutting down, performing instead of feeling. But he remembered the moment that changed him. He remembered what happened when he allowed himself to be real. And so, every time the pressure grew, he reminded himself of the truth. He didn't have to impress the world. He only had to be honest with it. His honesty began shaping his choices. He took on roles that challenged him emotionally. He accepted projects that forced him to explore new parts of himself. He chose stories that meant something, not just for the audience, but for him. And fans noticed. They saw him not just as a celebrity, but as a person willing to grow in front of them. That rawness made people feel connected to him in ways fame alone never could. There were moments he stumbled. Moments he felt unsure. Moments he doubted himself. But each time, he returned to the same lesson. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. Vulnerability was strength. And the world admired him not because he was untouchable, but because he was real. His journey wasn't perfect. It wasn't always glamorous. It wasn't always public. But every quiet step he took shaped him into someone people looked up to, not as a flawless superstar, but as a human being in motion. What fans didn't know is that he still thinks about that moment on set. The moment someone asked him not to perform, but to feel. That single sentence became the turning point of his career and the foundation of the artist he is today. It taught him that the most powerful version of Wang Yibo isn't the one who hides behind talent. It's the one who isn't afraid to be seen. And that is why his story keeps inspiring millions around the world. Because his journey reminds people that growth doesn't always happen in the spotlight. Sometimes, the moment that changes everything begins quietly, like a door opening inside someone who finally chooses to let themselves be honest. This is the story behind the transformation. The story behind the impact. The story behind the depth fans notice in his work today. It's not a headline or a rumor or a scripted narrative. It's the real reason he became the version of himself that people admire now. A version carved not by fame or success, but by courage. The courage to stop hiding.